In the whipping, I'm whipping the soul out it. Chin the tone when I'm festing like Pilates. Why you frontin', you act like you somebody. Keep a trail in the ville, how I go by it. I was stuck in the rut, I was nobody. I've been looking for something to go body. There's an art to the hustle like yo got it. Kid got a kid back in here like a new shotty. In the whipping, I'm whipping the soul out it. Chin the tone when I'm
Welcome back, Titan Clan. It's been a while. You guys seem to have really liked the first part to the Madara with it. It's pretty much in high demand at this point, so enough stalling. On with the video. Oh, and also join the Discord, which will be linked in the description.
I see. You've awakened the first state of the Sharingan, Issei.
A strange voice stated. Issei looked around to see who said that. Actually, where was he? He was in an empty space. It was pitch black. A hand rested itself on Issei's shoulder. He jolted back and turned around to see a slightly taller man with a similar hairstyle to himself. His hair was black though, and his eyes looked drained. "Who are you?" Issei asked.
Well, I'm you. You are my reincarnation.
The odd entity replied. Reincarnation? What? No way was that actually real, right? The entity could tell that Issei was still skeptical, so he explained a little more about what was going on. His name was Madara Uchiha, and he was one of the greatest warriors to have ever been produced throughout history. He died, but his essence wasn't completely erased. This world was very different from his own, but the forces of this world seemed to have formed a new body for his immense power, although most of it was sealed. The body he was referring to was Issei's own. He managed to unlock the One Tomoe Sharingan, which was good for now, but he would find out that there were greater forms to it. This was only the beginning. He would show this world what it meant to be the reincarnation of Madara Uchiha. The pitch black world he was in suddenly shifted to a world full of shinobis fighting one man, but they were losing. It was Madara who was going through the swarms of fighters, and at one point he seemingly summoned a meteor. He somehow covered himself in a giant blue suit of armor as well, and his opponents were no match for him. What was this?
This is just a glimpse of your unimaginable power you'll have one day, Issei. For now, though, it's time for you to wake up.
Issei tried to stay in his dreamscape, but it was ineffective. He woke up to find himself in his room. He felt up his body in order to make sure he wasn't dreaming again. Nope. He was in the physical realm, but something was bugging him though. Well, besides the whole thing about him being the apparent reincarnation of someone. Yuma! He balled up his hands into fists, thinking back to what happened that night. She stabbed him with no remorse whatsoever in her eyes. He really let his guard down with her. He didn't even know how he was alive right now, but he wasn't complaining. If he found that girl, he didn't care if he got expelled. He would be tearing her to shreds. Issei went to school and treated it like any normal day, but he made sure to stay observant in case he saw that Two-Face anywhere around his vicinity. Unfortunately, he didn't. He clicked his tongue in disappointment at the end of the day. Although his friends could tell something was wrong, he just waved them off when they tried addressing it. Considering the fact they didn't even mention Yuma to him was odd, but not to see her anywhere all day was even stranger. She had just enrolled into the school yesterday. He left school that day to focus on himself. It was dark, but Issei was in no rush to make it home. If he forgot to do his homework or anything, he could easily walk up to one of the smarter kids in his class and ask if he could see their homework. With his reputation, it wasn't hard to get that information. Teachers weren't going to do squat either, even if they saw. Something felt off though while he was walking home. It felt like a presence was here, something that was beginning to approach him. Issei could practically feel the aura. He was in danger. He began to pick up the pace and even attempted to pull out his phone and go live on Instagram in case it was some creepy dude trying to kidnap him. He didn't get time for that though, as his phone was struck by what seemed to be a light construct. Issei smirked. He was waiting to encounter her all day, but apparently she came to him. A weird, stinging feeling enveloped his eyes, but it quickly went away. He guessed that it was the Sharingan developing in his eyes. He figured that there was some sort of charge needed to activate the Sharingan, since he didn't wake up having them in place of his green eyes. He didn't know what the Sharingan was consuming though. He'd figure it out later, but for now, he was going to kill this dude? Huh? Who are you? I thought Yuma would have been the one to have thrown that light spear. A fallen angel wearing a gray trench coat and fedora was in the place of Yuma, Issei's intended target. So it appears she failed to kill you. And what's with those eyes? Weren't they green just a moment ago? You must have already awakened your sacred fear. How annoying, the fallen angel muttered. They threw another light construct at Issei, but he was easily able to dodge. The attack came off as rather slow in Issei's eyes. He was surprised. It was rather easy for him to dodge more of the attacks too. He was beginning to get cocky. At one point he tried grabbing one of the spears in order to throw it right back at the fallen angel, but it burned his hand instead. This one moment blew away his concentration. Danasik charged at Issei with another light spear in hand. He tried to do a backflip in order to dodge the attack, but he only managed to redirect where the attack went. It pierced through his leg. He bit his tongue so his opponent wouldn't hear him scream. He fell to the ground, but he wasn't finished. He got back up and subconsciously he started to do a couple of hand signs. Danasik didn't know what Issei was doing at first, but he was then hit with a wave of fire coming from Issei's mouth. The attack burned Danasik severely, but he wasn't out just yet. He was about to launch himself at Issei once more, but a magical portal opened right next to Issei. A beautiful red head stepped out from there and stomped the man in his tracks. Issei tried to grab onto the girl for some support, but instead he fainted on top of her. He completely blacked out.
Impressive. You managed to last a good 10 minutes out there, Madara complimented.
What was that fire technique I did back there? Issei questioned.
Fire style, fireball jutsu, a technique that was quite common among my people, but it was an effective one. We had a natural affinity to it, although we used a different energy source to do it. You appear to possess something different, which powers your moves. I'm surprised you were even able to do it so effectively on your first try.
This interested Issei. He could breathe fire? Nice! He wondered if there were any other moves he could learn during this time.
Oh, and apparently the soul of a dragon lives within this body as well.
Madara mentioned. What now? Before Issei could ask for any more context, he awoke once more in his bed, but he could feel something holding him. He turned around to see the redhead from last night. His eyes widened in shock. She opened her eyes and yawned before getting up. Issei immediately tried to cover her up and turn around. Rias giggled at his behavior though. She would have never expected such a powerful influence within her school to be blushing like a tomato when in her presence. She grabbed Issei and held him in a hug. She rested her chin on his head. He was breathing heavily, wondering what she was doing here, and did they? No, Issei. You were stabbed in the leg last night by one of those fallen angels, so I did the best I could to heal you, although, well, it required a couple of things, Rias explained. One knock at the door later and Issei's mother was left speechless. She knew that his son was quite capable of himself, but he didn't appear to have any sort of interest towards such a thing. She started to tear up. Her son was normal! The two ended up sitting next to each other in the dining room, eating breakfast together. It was so awkward for Issei considering how his parents were acting. His dad was talking about how Issei had finally become a man and his mother was crying. He scarfed down his food just so that he could leave as soon as possible. He grabbed his bag and began to leave. Rias followed. They walked to school together and she ended up explaining how she used some memory editing magic so that the two would forget about certain things. That and think she was just there to learn some fighting moves from Issei. She only did it after they were about to leave though because she found it to be kinda cute how uncomfortable Issei was. The two went their separate ways once they reached school. At the end of the day, the supposed knight of the school, Kiba Yuto, ended up approaching Issei requesting that he come to the occult research club. Interesting. Kiba and Issei never usually talked to each other, so this intrigued him. He knew Rias was the president of the club as well, so he'd probably gain more information about what happened. She mentioned magic and fallen angels this morning after all. He needed to know what that was all about. When he arrived, he was given a quick rundown of his current predicament. He was now a devil within her peerage and he had a sacred gear. All of the people within this room were also devils. There were also 3 factions: the angels, fallen angels, and devils. The fallen angels seemed to want to get rid of him as fast as possible for some odd reason. Fear for his potential, perhaps? He was already quite strong as a human, so she couldn't completely blame them. She was even a little intimidated at first considering his track record and the fact he even managed to harm a fallen angel on his first day of becoming a devil. Actually, what was that move he used to burn the fallen angel back there? He shouldn't have known magic just yet. Issei shrugged. He explained that he just did it on the spot and began breathing fire after using a couple of hand signs. It came naturally to him. Rias was interested in this but decided to ask more about it later. For now, Issei needed to get some contracts. He ended up passing around flyers and tried fulfilling some contracts in order to increase his magical power. He also went on stray devil hunts during this time as well. He ended up discovering a neat ability of the Sharingan. Apparently, if someone were to look him in the eyes, he could mess with their minds. It left them open for attacks of all kinds. While Issei was discovering more of these abilities though, Kiba ended up meeting a girl by the name of Asya and led her back to the apparent church she went to. During the journey, he learned that she had quite a bit of a caring heart, even being willing to heal a kid who simply scraped his knee. Her caring heart was what even got her in trouble with the church she grew up in because she healed a devil. They casted her out, thinking that she practiced witchcraft or had allied with the wicked. It was a painful experience, but she didn't regret healing them. Kiba admired the girl for that. When they reached the church though, he began to suffer from a headache. The two departed after that. They wouldn't realize they'd meet again very soon. The next time they met, Issei was meant to fulfill a contract for a client, but instead he was fighting off a crazed lunatic by the name of Fried Selzen. He didn't have enough time to use any of his hand signs, but once Kiba jumped in, they tag-teamed the man. Issei covered the area with ash in order to act as a smokescreen against Fried. The man shot wildly, but Issei ran at the man, grabbing his face. He kneed the man in the face and quickly went through his hand signs in order to produce one of his strongest fire techniques at the time. Fire release! Great fire annihilation! Issei yelled. Selzen screamed in pain as he was being burned alive. Asya was scared out of her mind at this point. This guy, he was a monster! What was Kiba doing with him? Once Issei turned towards Asya's direction, she felt like running, but she made the mistake of looking directly into his eyes. She was frozen in place. Issei looked over to Kiba, who felt a bit uncomfortable at what Issei did. He didn't know why though, considering they killed stray devils before. This was self-defense. Nothing more, nothing less. Issei pointed over to the girl and explained that they couldn't leave her here. They had to take her with them and get Rias' advice on what to do next. For all they knew, she could probably tell some higher-ups about what happened here and have to deal with opponents who they couldn't even handle yet. Kiba had to agree here and he grabbed Asya. Issei would have originally gone with suggesting that they kill her, but she did try to protect him against Fried, so this was his form of gratitude. When Rias found out what happened, she was a bit hesitant about accepting Asya. Kiba wasn't one to vouch for her though, and Issei explained that she was still trapped within his mind, a trick that he dumped as a genjutsu. Kiba pleaded with Rias to trust Asya for now, but if that were too much to ask for the time, he recommended that the crimson-haired female allow Asya to live with him for the time being. Rias signed before she agreed to it after all of Kiba's begging. Kiba must have really trusted the girl to put his neck out on the line like that. It was an interesting sight indeed. She did wonder what this Fried Selzen guy's connection to the church was though. How much of a prominence did he truly have? Another thing she had to deal with though was the Phoenix clan, and one of their most notable pompous members, Riser. She looked over to Issei and immediately started plotting. Some time had passed and Issei was at home exercising. Nothing too out of the ordinary for the boy. Just a couple of 1-arm push-ups and Russian twists before grabbing the 50-pound dumbbells. His training was interrupted though when a magical portal appeared. It was Ria's and she jumped into his arms, demanding that he take her. He had no idea what she meant until she whispered in his ear. By the time Grapia arrived, it was already too late. She was disappointed but not surprised. Rias had been trying to come out to that marriage for a while now. She now had to inform Sir Zex about this. Rias looked up at Grapia and smirked. One issue was resolved and now there was only one left. After gaining some information from Asiya, once Issei turned off his genjutsu as he called it, Rias managed to find out that Asiya was connected to a group of stray fallen angels. She was a good person, but the only time she'd ever truly be free would be when that group was taken care of. Asiya even gave her their whereabouts as well. So now it was just formulating a solid plan and time to strike.